The Western pro-life movement cares about protecting young mothers and their children from harm. But historically, that's also what the law is designed to do. Will those laws be restored? Yes, they will, and we will show you how on this edition of Life Matters. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives. On the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters, your program on the right to life, on the culture that emanates from that singular idea that every human being has a right to be alive and that the government's duty is to protect that innocent life. There's a whole culture that has been given to us from that idea. So we talk about the right to life, the culture that emanates from that, and the battle of ideas. And those ideas are raging all around us in this battle. And if you're not ready for this battle, you're going to lose, because the battle is intentionally aimed at how you think and how you view ideas that are very, very important. Today, we're going to talk about some contemporary issues at election time in California and nationwide. One of the issues that came up during this election cycle was illustrated by Justice Kavanaugh's hearings. Justice Kavanaugh was accused of some horrendous things. It was kind of last minute. But even before that accusation, there was a lot of storm and anger about him even being nominated. And then he was accused of these things in a very odd turn of events. And Justice Kavanaugh was a bit irritated, and that became somehow the reason then that he shouldn't be approved. Was he was irritated by these very, very inflammatory and serious accusations, almost extraordinary in their seriousness. And so we have to look at a basic premise of the law. Why? Because the right to life is, in fact, an assertion of the nature of the law. Whenever you talk about a right, you're talking about a legal right. So when we talk about the right to life, it's a legal assertion. And you probably recognize during the Kavanaugh hearings that the right to life is actually the subject that most concerns the radical left. They're concerned that the human baby in the womb could again have the right to life, protect him and her. And that's very, very disconcerting to them, because they've adopted a worldview that dismisses that significance. So we'll take a little time. We'll talk about what legal rights are. We'll talk about the presumption of innocence in the case of Justice Kavanaugh, but of course also in the case of every human being, be it a human baby, be it a grandma or a grandpa that maybe they have cancer or some other illness or disability or dementia. There's a presumption of innocence in the law, and that's a very important premise in our legal system. We'll talk about that, and then on today's program, we'll talk about, again, these elections that are right before us in California and many parts of the nation. People are voting right now. Remember that elections are a season, and that election day is actually the day that votes are finally tallied, that a lot of voting takes place long before 8 p.m. when the polls close on election night. A lot of the votes were cast, some cases, weeks beforehand. So we're in the middle of an election, and we're going to spend some time talking about the importance of elections and legal issues like the right to life. In fact, I'll be perfectly honest with you, it's very clear philosophically and politically that to restore the right to life, the only way to do so is through the election process. And that's why they're so hotly contested. That's why the battle of ideas comes to a head at election time. Again, if you're not aware that you're in a battle of ideas year-round, wherever you are in a battle. If you're a Christian, you know that on this planet, there is a spiritual battle between those who have rebelled against God, according to Christian theology, and those are idea carriers. Angels are actually, in Christian theology, they're pure intelligences. They are idea carriers. And according to Scripture and tradition, they've been cast out of heaven, those who turned against God's principles. And you know where they were cast? No, they're not in hell yet, according to Scripture. They were fallen to the earth. and now the battle is for the earth. Christ came to redeem mankind from their fallen nature. He didn't come to redeem angels, by the way. Some people have brought that up. No, Christ died for all men and women. He didn't die for angels. He didn't die for dogs and cats and other animals. He died principally to forgive the sins of mankind, and we have to recognize that. So there's a battle of ideas. Whose ideas will we allow to control our thinking? And if you're not aware that there's a constant struggle, and very often that struggle for ideas takes place in the realm of ideas. So universities and school systems, there's a lot of battling there for which ideas should take place. A lot of seminaries, that's the place where certain ideas are contested. And you might think that, just go to seminary and you're going to only learn good things. You need to realize, no, there's a battle over seminaries, and there's a battle over what certain churches will teach and what they'll practice. And if you don't recognize that, you haven't read the scriptures. Jesus recognized that in dealing with the Pharisees. They were very, very religious and very, very correct, but also very, very wrong in their correctness. And that's the problem with spiritual ideas. You have to really hone down to what's really true, not merely what seems to be true on the surface. And so we deal with that here on Life Matters, because every life is significant. Every life has been given that gift. And according to America's founders, that gift was given by a creator. I didn't make that up. They said that. They said that each one of us are endowed by our creator with certain inalienable rights, and that this is a truth that's self-evident. You don't have to go off to 18 years of education in order to arrive at truth. Certain truth has been made known through the laws of nature and of nature's God. And so we'll talk about those things as they apply to our life every day. And right now at election time, they're applying right now. When we come back, we'll touch on why Justice Kavanaugh's hearing was incredibly important for this very specific battle between right and wrong, between what is true and what appears to be true but is actually false, and about the principle of innocent until proven guilty, why that is so important, and the purpose of the law is to protect the innocent until proven guilty. What an important principle. That's what was at stake in the Kavanaugh hearings. That's what's at stake in the right to life debate. And we want you to be ready to stake a claim for the right to life, not only for your own life and your own innocence when you're falsely accused, but most importantly for those who cannot speak for themselves. We'll be right back after this.
Life Matters continues after this.
Do you have a car you aren't using anymore? You can donate your car or boat, mobile home, trailer, or motorcycle, even property, to California Pro-Life Council and get the highest amount possible in a tax deduction. That's right. Our donation program doesn't just turn around and dump the car. Our volunteer team of experts get the car in its best reasonable shape and then sell it at auction to the highest bidder. You get the best tax deduction, and California Pro-Life gets the highest amount that it can to assist us in reaching Californians for life. If you'd like to get the most out of your car, boat, or motorhome, go to CaliforniaProLife.org. Scroll to the bottom of the page and click on Donate Car. That's CaliforniaProLife.org. Your car can make a difference, and make a difference for life.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters, your program on life, on culture, and the battle of ideas that's raging all around us right now. We talked about the Kavanaugh hearings and how it brought home the principle of innocence. Innocence until proven guilty, that the purpose of the law is in fact to protect the innocent. And this goes back in time. It's a tradition of Western civilization, but really became clarified. It was brought into a specific written code back in the year 1215 in England. This remote part of Europe, this interesting country of England, separated from the rest of Europe, refined the notion of authority and law. It had been the divine right of kings in the rest of Europe. And if the king made the judgment, well, you probably just had to abide by the king's judgment. In the Magna Carta, the king's power was limited, and what was asserted is that there's actually a law to which the king must adhere. There are truths that exist before the king and will exist after the king, and that the king is responsible to those truths and those principles, those self-evident truths. And so in the 39th chapter of the Magna Carta was expressed the idea of due process, that no one should be deprived of life. And we've refined that in America now. No one should be deprived of their life, their liberty or property without due process of law. In other words, they're innocent until proven guilty. And even if the king or whoever has authority at the time, even Senator Spartacus or whoever the authority figure is, if they declare you're guilty, but they are not using facts, then that's a very serious violation of a higher law. So this notion of innocence is critically important, and it resonates with us as human beings. We want the innocent to be protected. That, in fact, is the purpose of having laws. So back to the Kavanaugh hearing and what it means for the right to life, that's actually why the right to life comes into existence, is to protect those innocent children, and they were protected before Roe came along. In Roe v. Wade, Justice Blackmun dishonestly said, well, we don't know when life begins. Why would he say that? Because if it isn't a human life, then therefore it isn't a human life that's needing protection, and therefore killing that entity is perfectly all right. And that's really what Roe v. Wade said. We don't know when life begins. Therefore, have human abortions. But every state had laws against abortion. And that's because it's a self-evident truth. He actually, on that predicate, on that idea that we don't know when life begins, he lied. He did. Because we do know. We've known that for a long time. In the Hippocratic Oath, thousands of years before he wrote his decision, it says, I'll give no deadly medicine, even if asked. And similarly, I will not give a woman a prescription to cause an abortion. It says similarly. That is to say, I'm not going to use medicine to kill. Because he knew. Hippocrates knows, and anyone with common sense knows, that's a human baby. A living human baby should not be intentionally killed. They're, in fact, the model of innocence. And so what we have is a situation throughout history. You go back to Da Vinci. If you've seen Da Vinci's artworks, he's got a beautiful drawing that he did, and he did a lot of studies. He did an etching, and you can see it in other places. It's called Child in the Womb, and it literally is a drawing of a child in the womb. And it's actually a biological examination, like from the book Gray's Anatomy. He actually opens a womb surgically. We see that, and we see the child sitting in the womb. So that goes back to the 1400s. We know when life begins. We know, starting in 1836, that it begins at conception, because mammalian conception was witnessed in the microscope by Sir Thomas Berry in 1836. And so the knowledge that this is a human being has been with us for a very long time. Objectively, it was at quickening. Even without medical instruments, if the child is kicking, mom knows there's somebody in there. That's an objective, measurable fact, and that was the law up until the 1800s, because that was our best science. But starting in 1870, right after the Civil War, when slaves were again recognized as human beings, there was a nationwide effort in the United States to restore recognition for children in the womb. And what's known as the medical crusade against abortion brought it to every state, so that every state had laws protecting that innocent child. That's what was overturned in Roe v. Wade, the laws of every state. Now, what does this have to do with us? Everything. Because here in California and nationwide in 2018, those laws are again at stake, and the protection of the innocent is the number one question. That's why abortion laws matter. And the only way to change abortion laws in the state is to elect state lawmakers that will respect these self-evident truths, that will recognize these self-evident proclamations, these living proclamations, if you will, that were made uniquely. And in Christian tradition, it says that we're made in the image of God. Regardless of your traditions, we are obviously an extraordinary creation that the government didn't make, we didn't make ourselves. Every human being is scientifically unique and extraordinary, and the law should protect these innocent human beings. That's what's at stake in 2018 in the laws. That's what's at stake. That's what was at stake in the Kavanaugh hearings. Will the innocent be protected? And that's what's at stake in the abortion debate, in the euthanasia debate, will the innocent be protected from intentionally being killed? The purpose of the law is to protect people from intentional harm by others, whether it be the state or whether it be other miscreants who have power over them. The law is there to protect them. So if your neighbor says, man, I really like your car, I like your house, I'm going to kill you so I can have that. No, that's why we need the state, the government to step in. That's why policemen have badges and guns to protect the vulnerable innocent from those who would harm them. So this debate's very real. Again, some folks, and I agree, we all love babies. But it isn't about my love of babies. That's not really the bottom line in the right to life. Because I've met many people who don't understand the seriousness and the pressure of the euthanasia debate because they've mistaken this as being only about babies. This is about, will the law protect those who can't protect themselves? That's the entirety of the debate. And not understanding that allows us to be misled. So the nature of the laws and the nature of protecting these kids and vulnerable human beings has to be something that you take personally if we're going to restore that right to life. And the only way to do that is at elections. So when we come back, we're going to talk about California elections, who's who, how to make a difference, how to make sure that the laws will change after this election. The only way to do that is by changing lawmakers. That's what a Democrat republic can do. That's the gift that Jefferson, Adams, Washington gave us, was the ability to change the laws by changing the lawmakers. And as Jefferson said, by having our own bloodless revolution every 2 years, by challenging those in authority. That's been romanticized by the left to speak truth to power, but they, in fact, simply want power, and they've dismissed self-evident truths. So if they've taken over, and they have in California, the left has dismissed the significance of vulnerable individual babies. They've dismissed the significance in the California Democrat Party is a champion of voluntary euthanasia and involuntary. Just so you know, when you look at the euthanasia debate, please listen to our segment on that. Go to the podcast and listen to the nature of assisted suicide and suicidal coercion. But when you intentionally kill someone for a good reason, you automatically want to extend that good reason. That's what's happened in other societies, and that's what's happening now in euthanasia. So we want you to understand what the right to life debate is and how you can change at election time. When we come back, we'll talk about California candidates, and if you're in other states, do go to your state affiliate of National Right to Life so that the right to life is examined at election time. Go to nrlc.org, find out who your state affiliate is, and find out who your state affiliate is, and find out whom they have endorsed as being advocates for life for your state. Because when Roe is overturned, it'll be up to you in your state and your state lawmakers to again assert protection for those who can't protect themselves.
Life Matters continues after this.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, nbsp.org, to help out. That's nbsp.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're going to talk about California elections right now. If you're not in California, go to nrlc.org and find your state affiliate for National Right to Life. Find out whom they have endorsed and go through their list to make sure you help those good candidates. Here in California, starting at the top of the ticket, we have, of course, John Cox for governor, very pro-life gentleman, and he's running against Gavin Newsom, a very pro-abortion gentleman. Again, the way you determine your policies in a state is by the policymakers you elect. That can only be done at election time. several other constitutional offices I want to tell you about. One very important is Attorney General. Our current Attorney General, Javier Becerra, has used his post to prosecute and persecute advocates of life. That's right. I'm saying that straightforward. If you recall the videos that expose Planned Parenthood's carving up babies and selling their parts, those videos are very compelling, and Planned Parenthood wants it silenced. Javier Becerra has used Attorney General post to prosecute those who are speaking the truth. And again, the purpose of the law is just the opposite, to protect those speaking the truth, and most importantly, to protect the innocent. So for Stephen Bailey, he's a retired judge. We've advocated and support Stephen Bailey for Attorney General. He believes in the Constitution, and that's critically important at this time. Several other races, Board of Equalization determines taxation. So Ted Gaines in the 1st District, that's all of Northern California and Eastern California. The 3rd District, which is pretty much Central Valley and other parts of California, and they split a little bit of San Bernardino County. And then finally, that's Rick Marshall in the 3rd District. And in the 4th District on the Board of Equalization is Joel Anderson, representing all of Southern California. That's Joel Anderson for Board of Equalization. That's Orange and Riverside and Imperial and San Diego counties. So we want to keep going. Some of these important races, something everyone will vote on is Prop 8. We're opposing Prop 8 because it imposes government rationing. Now, we want to go through Congress. Please go to CaliforniaProLife.org. The reason we want you to go there is I can't go through all the races. You will find in the endorsements, at the bottom of the endorsement list, we actually have counties where it lists those pro-life candidates all the way down to, as they say, dog catcher, water board. And school boards are very important. So go to endorsements. If your county is one of those counties that we had pro-life volunteers step up, Orange County, San Joaquin, San Bernardino, Riverside, we've had various counties that people have stood up and found out local candidates. Do go for those local endorsements at CaliforniaProLife.org. You can also see comparison guides of all candidates from the assembly level on up, and that's merely their position. So those voter guides you can actually distribute anywhere because it doesn't endorse, it simply tells you what their positions are. So go there. I want to spend just a moment talking about Congress because what California does in these congressional races is critical. So Jeff Denham is Congressional District 10. Jeff Denham is under incredible pressure. He's very pro-life. If you're in the Central Valley and Stanislaus in that region of the Central Valley, do support Jeff Denham, Merced, Stanislaus, north of Fresno. Then going down to Congressional District 25 is Northern Los Angeles County, and that's Steve Knight. Going down into Orange County, 3 very important races. Congressional District 39, Young Kim. Congressional District 45, Mimi Walters. Congressional District 48, Dana Rohrabacher. Very, very heavily contested. Please help those candidates. And if you want more information on any candidates, please go to CaliforniaProLife.org. Look at voter information. Get the information locally for the candidates that need your help. Now is the time. So please go to CaliforniaProLife.org. Other states, go to NRLC.org and find out your state affiliate and who it is that's running for life. If you're listening to this program in another state, we want to urge you to go to your state affiliate of National Right to Life. When you go to the NRLC website, consider supporting NRLC. You can do it right there. You can donate. But then go to your state affiliate, find out how you can plug in to change the culture of your state. When Roe v. Wade is overturned, it's the states that are going to be able to protect those children once again. It's the states that are going to be able to address the law, because the purpose of the law is to protect those that can't protect themselves. Remember, that's the reason that policemen are hired by the government, to protect vulnerable people from harm, to protect people who can't protect themselves. So the purpose of even having government is to protect those that are vulnerable. Human babies are very vulnerable, and until 1973, the laws did protect them. You've heard, there were a lot of abortions before 73. Well, to be honest, no, there weren't. There weren't nearly the number of abortions we have now, and that's because it was against the law. Cars are being stolen every day. Does that mean we should take away the laws against stealing cars? Of course not. Dr. Bernard Nathanson was a founder of the National Abortion Rights Action League. He became pro-life later, but I knew Dr. Nathanson, and he tells us that he made up those statistics. They intentionally made up the statistics about illegal abortions. Now, of course, there were some. That's true, and they're very dangerous. Abortion is itself very dangerous because it invades a woman's body. It's extremely dangerous. And whether legal or illegal, it still is dangerous. But the fact is, we have the millions of abortions per year because it's legal, because it's promoted, and in many cases paid for. The only way to change that is in your state. Be involved, making sure that your state adopts a culture of life, which is best represented by the laws. The law is, in fact, a teacher. So don't be afraid of being involved in the civic process. Every election year, we do get involved, and we encourage you to be involved. Elect pro-life legislators. That's how we're going to change things. But through the rest of the year, we want to encourage you to support your local and state pro-life affiliate. Your affiliate of National Right to Life is part of a nationwide team, and this team is dedicated to restoring the right to life. In California, it's the California Pro-Life Council, and California Pro-Life sponsors this radio show, and it's heard throughout the state on various stations, and as you know, also as a podcast. Now, the podcast, if you haven't gone there, each program is dedicated to a very specific issue of the right to life, so you can hear it later. It isn't just the ephemera or the day-to-day things. We want you to be equipped to deal with the issues of life. So go to CaliforniaProLife.org. I'd like to ask you to join Team Life. Team Life is that team of people dedicated to giving a monthly pledge. And if you will pledge monthly to California Pro-Life, we would like it to be $25 or more, but if you give less, we'll still put you on the team. It's a team of people dedicated to changing the culture of California for good, for life. Please join Team Life by going to CaliforniaProLife.org. That's all spelled out, no hyphens, and pledging. As part of Team Life, you'll get certain privileges, passes to certain events, a lot more extra information that will help equip you and your friends and family, passes to the Life Fest Film Festival, among other things. But really, it's an honor to be part of a team of like-minded citizens who want to restore what's right to California. It's a great state. We're not going to let it go. God has us here for a purpose, and we think you're here for a purpose too. So join Team Life by going to CaliforniaProLife.org.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life.